Hi Savannah, and welcome to Project 70.
Hi Rebecca, and thank you for the invitation to share my story.
Awesome. So, do you want to tell us a bit about yourself?
Okay, well, immediately, next month I turn the big 50, but prior to that, I grew up in Sydney and moved to the Redlands 22 years ago. With my first husband, I was 5.5 months pregnant with my second daughter. So my eldest was only 2.5 when we first moved up to the Redlands, and haven't moved out of the area. Loved it ever since, and since then had my second and then my third child. And then about a year later, my parents followed, and we settled in and created a wonderful life. And then the journey just kept evolving as it does. So unfortunately my first marriage ended probably about 16 years ago, and then, as life does sometimes, throws you a few curveballs. I then went on and had a second marriage, and that didn't pan out too well. But in the process of marriages breaking down, my dad continued with his fight with prostate cancer. So that was an emotional journey to watch your parent and your loved one go through something so horrific. So Mum and I helped Dad nurse him through to the end, and through that journey led us to help Mum go into retirement living, which ultimately led me to creating my business in the Redlands and beyond, which is Retirement Care Solutions. So it's been an incredible journey the last 3.5 years since starting the business, helping Mum navigate through aged care, through finding her new home, to helping her get in-home care, but also just the emotional side of helping someone through that grieving process. For her, the last 10 years since my father passed away was quite an emotional roller coaster ride that inevitably I went on with her. And then Mum decided at the beginning of the year her journey was to end as well. So January this year, my mum passed away. So in creating this business, it really enabled me to walk the journey with my clients as well. Having been through the roles of carer, as a daughter, experiencing the highs and the lows of your parents going through the transition of ageing, through to the joys of just having loving parents as well. So it's been an incredible journey, and probably in looking back, there are some things I may have done differently, but through living in the Redlands, I have an amazing support network, both for the business, but more importantly, my social network, that I would not change. For me, many of my friends are like my family. My brother lives in Adelaide, and I've got a lot of relatives in Sydney still, but my core were my 3 children, or still my 3 children, and my friends. But we're very fortunate in the Redlands. We have a thriving community, both socially and economically, through Chamber of Commerce wanting to help businesses grow and networking groups. And so for me, in the short term, no, I would never consider moving out of the Redlands. Actually, it's been an amazing region to live in. Yeah.
What's the hardest thing you've gone through personally?
Oh. The hardest thing has been walking out of a marriage where you've experienced domestic violence. Having the courage, or the fear was so great that you knew if you didn't leave, you would have lost yourself as well. So that was the hardest thing. But in saying that, it was the greatest thing. Simply because it transformed my life and allowed me to grow. Yeah.
How did you get the courage to leave? What were the steps that you took that may, even if it's one woman listening to this, to help them get out?
It got to the point where I had to decide between my husband or my 3 children. Fortunately, he wasn't the father of my children, so that was an easy part. But I'm not a quitter, so I didn't want to quit on the marriage. But in the end, I didn't want to quit on my children, and I knew if I stayed, I would have lost my children. So that was the pivotal point, and yeah, it was, and how do you, it was my children that gave me the courage to leave, and they are the ones that continue to supply the courage and the support endlessly,
And after leaving and being a survivor of domestic violence, what do you think of domestic violence in Australia and how we deal with it as a country?
Well, tonight there's a candlelight vigil. I think statistically it's predominantly women. Children are on the back end of domestic violence as well. But I think what I have learnt is we need to empower women more about their self-worth. Because if we had self-worth, we would have those strong boundaries and we wouldn't allow someone to come in within those boundaries and accept what these people are doing to us. So, a lot of people say it is about choice. You chose to stay. In the beginning, it probably is choice, but what I find is sometimes the fear is too great to find the courage and the resilience to break away from it. When you're indoctrinated with all the negativity, you just lose who you are. And so the statistics in Australia are quite frightening, actually. I think it's about 137 cases of domestic violence reported every day, something like that. Really high statistics. Even more so, we lose a lot of women to domestic violence. I think there is a silent aspect to men on the receiving end of domestic violence. I don't want to not acknowledge that men do have that aspect as well, but it is predominantly women. And unfortunately, they're predators and they know. If I could change things, I would. But in saying that, I would not be the person that I am today. And I actually like who I am today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how did you get from the day that you left to now? Who was there? How did you get out once you left? Who was there to support you?
I had 3 amazing friends. We quickly packed up my house.
While he wasn't there?
Yeah, while he wasn't there. While he wasn't there. Well, I had actually asked him to go and not come back, but we knew he would come back. So I had a very good friend whose mum had an empty house, and we moved in there. He then subsequently found us, and we then found the worst kind of his behaviour when I had the police ring me. One night at work, he'd thrown a pitchfork through our front window. So again, then we had to pack up, move, and he found us again. And then we moved again. And I realised I can't keep running. I had to be strong, and through the support of the police in the Redlands were amazing. They gave me the courage to get a temporary protection order, and then ultimately the magistrate at the court would not allow me to leave until I had that in my hand. And so there is a lot of support, and I think women don't realise how much support there is. Even the Redlands Community Centre provided me with solicitor and pro bono barrister to fight him in court when he came for property settlement. And there is so much more knowledge today than there was over 10 years ago as well. But women need to know there's a tribe out there that would protect a woman. I was probably one of the lucky ones. He didn't actually physically hit me, but the emotional, physical to property, and psychological and financial abuse was massive. So yeah, it's not an easy step. You know, people do say to women, why don't you leave? It's not that simple. It's not that simple. If it was, women would. But you are too afraid in most cases. And we see that with, you know, women being brutally murdered, shot, you know, because they do find them sometimes. So there is a great consequence. So I think people need to be mindful when they say, you know, find the strength and go, because it's not always as easy as that. You really need to have support and a backup plan and have everything lined up so that you are safe when you do leave. Yeah. So, and for me, the biggest question was, how did I, because I consider myself a relatively intelligent person, how did I get into a situation like this? No one plans it. Yeah, no one plans it.
So how did that experience? It's obviously a big part of who you've become, but for your children.
What is created is 3 amazing, resilient children who I now know would do anything for me, and vice versa. So if anything, it brought the 4 of us together even closer. Yeah, so they have their moments, and I think in some ways it has created some on-flow effect of anxiety, in stressful situations for them at times. And that's something that I've continually worked on. The guilt in remaining in the marriage for longer than I probably should have. We had left a number of times, and each time he would lull us back in the hope that it would change. But the third time I realised, sometimes people just don't change. And if anything has to change, it has to be me. So, and that's what I have been doing for the last 10 years, is evolving and growing, and continually to be there for my children and vice versa, and just focusing on what's important to me, and that is my family, my business, and giving back to my clients and walking the journey through their retirement years, and just leveraging my experiences through the domestic violence situation, but more importantly too as carer for my parents, and just providing that support wherever I can. Yeah.
So you said you like who you are now.
Mm-hmm.
Describe who you are now.
Oh, who am I? Sometimes this crazy woman. An amazing soul, heart of gold, wear my heart on my sleeve. What you see is what you get. Great sense of humour, loyal, full of integrity, and just someone who loves from their very core. Yeah.
Awesome. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
No, it's other than it's been a wonderful opportunity to actually share my story. Hopefully it will resonate with somebody and maybe change someone's life. But thank you.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you so much for being a part of the project.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Savannah.